All right. Another great week starting off. And we're excited. We got a great guest on today, defensive line coach from West Virginia University, Coach Jackson, which we're really excited to talk to him. Obviously, the season coming up, big time Power Five school, and really looking to talk more to him, not just about West Virginia football, but his background, how he got into coaching, him as a player, all those kind of things, and dive into a little bit of that, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, excited. Coach Jackson and I, we've known each other for a good amount of years now. Originally kind of met up just doing kind of what we do, right? We were both at a camp, coaching young guys and linked up and have kind of just stayed in touch. He has an incredible story in terms of how he's gotten to where he's gotten in terms of, being at this school as a graduate assistant and then working his way up through. He's been with some great people. He's made some great moves. He's been at great levels. And now, he's the D-line coach at West Virginia. And he's in a pretty powerful position. We're talking about a big time program. And overall, just a good guy in general, has always been there for questions or ask or, anything that I ever needed. So looking forward to it. I think he's going to add some light, again, another perspective that, our audience can get looking at certain things from, through different eyes each time we have somebody else on here. So looking forward to it.
Cool. Coach, just real quick, you do have a little bit of an echo. So just when he speaks or anyone speaks,
I will mute as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Great. Let's bring Coach on. Coach, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys having me on.
We're excited to have you on, and Coach gave you a great intro. And we really wanted to dive into, really your background as a player, how you got into coaching, because so many people want to know, they want to be where you are, and they want to learn how to get on that path. So talk a little bit about your background as a player, and then how you became a coach, and to where you are now.
Awesome. Yeah. So I played Division II ball at CW Post when they were still, before the LIU merger and all that good stuff. Played there for 5 years for Coach Brian Collins, who just recently passed away. Who was going to be the DC at Stony Brook. Great guy. Gave me a chance. I broke my leg coming out of high school my senior year, and I had some Power 5 aspirations. Really, kind of signing day had passed, and really had nothing going on. And Coach Collins gave me a scholarship there at Post. Played defensive line there for him. He was, he's really the D-line coach at the time. Had some good position coaches there. Thought I was going to be a high school teacher, leaving college in about 2011. And the world in the teaching realm was kind of, no one was retiring. There weren't many teaching jobs open. So Coach Collins said, "Hey, why don't you come back and kind of be like a GA and get into coaching and start working with the defensive line and stuff." And I was like, when I was done playing, I really had no want to be a part of the game in the coaching aspect. I really wanted to be like a phys ed teacher and really just kind of just live my life away from football and discover new things. I think most of my teammates would tell you I'm crazy for saying that and thinking that. They always thought I was going to be a coach, I guess. But wound up GAing for him that 2012 season, and I haven't looked back. And it's even though I was a broke kid and really relying on my parents to still help me out, it was like the greatest thing I had ever done was to step on the other side of the field and coach and get involved. And from there, I thought I was going to probably just be like the next D-line coach at LIU and stay there forever. And Coach Collins kind of kicked me out the door and kicked me down the road down 495, down to Stony Brook to work for Chuck Priori. And I thought that was the greatest thing ever. I actually, at first I was like, what did I get myself into? I know nothing. When I sat in the room with defensive coordinator, it was Lyle Hempel at the time, who was coaching down at Duke. And him and Tyler Santucci, who's now the DC at Duke. And I'm like, in a football world with these guys, I don't know anything that's going on. Learned a lot of ball from those guys and wound up landing a Power 5 GA job at Penn State 2 years later. And, that really changed my whole life and my outlook on Power 5 football and just being a part of it. I'd never seen anything that big as an organization, and never saw a fan base as passionate that as going into Happy Valley and get a chance to work with Coach Franklin. So from there, I was able to land my first full-time job at Fordham, and then made my way down to Mississippi, back through JMU, where we went to the national championship runners-up. Went to Old Dominion during the pandemic, and then kind of made my way up to West Virginia now for 3 years.
That's awesome. We lost Coach D for a second. I'm sure he'll be right back. What's so interesting, and especially about your path, right? And I guess you hear this quite often, right? There's other guys that dive into coaching and they know that like that's what they want to be, or then there are other guys like yourself that kind of ended up going into that route and then realized, wow, this is where I belong, right?
Mhm.
And it's amazing what you've done. Your road in moving to different places, you know what I mean? What are some of the things that you learned as far as multiple different coaching staffs? I know I'm familiar with Coach Priori. He's done a great job at Stony Brook. He's a staple there for many years. What are the different things that you've learned along the way, taking each different step in coaching?
I think there's, obviously there's 100 ways to skin a cat. So I worked for Coach Priori, Coach Collins, Kurt Signetti, very old school guys, very much about the old school ways, being tough, being physical. Then I got a chance to work for a guy like James Franklin, who's a forward thinker, Joe Moorhead, who's a forward thinker, Neil Brown is a forward thinker, and it all works. They've all had success, and there's a million ways to do it, and you can learn something from each one of those pieces. So I think that was the most eye-opening thing. It was how unique every different program is.
Well, so that's interesting. I know Moorhead pretty well. The styles between like a Moorhead and Signetti, or Priori, right? And now with Neil Brown, who's Moorhead and Neil Brown philosophically, I guess, are more aligned, and then Signetti and Priori might be like more aligned in their style of coaching. Tell me some of the things that you learn in those differences, and like some of the things you can grab, because that's interesting, because I think you need both, right? You need some of the old school stuff as you're coming up, right? Some of those principles, and then you need some of the new way stuff. What are some of the things that you learned from the different types of styles of coaching?
Number one is like all those guys, as different as they were, all preached being able to run the football and able to defend the run. They all preached toughness in their different ways, and they all got to the best out of the players in different ways. And I think that one of the most unique things I've learned is that I have a room with 18 guys, and they're all different. They're all motivated different, all come from different places. But it's also in the beauty of the game that we're able to take all those differences and put 22 people on the field, and the team that works together the best is the best team usually. So I guess, kind of being more well-rounded, seeing the bigger picture. I mean, I drove from the Bronx, New York, from Fordham to Mississippi, and I really literally watched the United States change before my eyes, and all the different people. So, I mean, and then again, as you get, from the north to the south, football is the same game, but again, it's just different people doing it.
Yeah, that's very, very right. New York City to Mississippi, two different, worlds completely. One's much more rural. Well, obviously, New York City is as urban as it gets, maybe in the world, right? So, especially where Fordham is over there by Arthur Ave, and so it is populated as it comes. So that's really, really interesting. What have you found? So player wise, right? When you're looking for a defensive lineman, or West Virginia is looking for a player, what are some of the key things that you think that you're looking for in a player that can help them be successful in college if you're recruiting them?
Number one thing is in college, and this is from, being at the D3 level all the way to the Power 5 level, you have to love this. I mean, this is a really huge sacrifice of time, and, time is the most precious thing we have. So anytime I sit down with a kid, it's like, do you love this game to make it like extreme part of your life? You're going to sacrifice time with family. You're going to sacrifice a lot of time with friends and different life experiences you're going to have to be able to play this game. And ultimately, you're going to get a lot of the good things out of it, but it's still, the ultimate sacrifice of time. And I think that's important, no matter what level you're on.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing with facilities looking the way they do now, right? They're like all these facilities at the Division One level, obviously very different than when you're at LAU and at Florida, but all the facilities at the Division One level at like West Virginia, you guys have as top of the line facilities as possible as money can buy, and that's part of the beauty of it, right? But you have to love the game because that's only what like the fans see and people on social media see, like here's what our facilities look like, but the day-to-day grind is what makes you a great player. What is a typical day? Kids come into camp, they starting, they come in, they start with your program. What's a typical day for them like?
Usually, it starts off with a meal. Usually, we feed them in the mornings, get them going. Some sort of recovery or treatment, some sort of body maintenance with the athletic training staff or the strength staff. And then into meetings. Right now, they're not in class. Summer sessions are finishing up, and we're in the training camp. So, practice, meetings, walkthrough, and then in training camp, kind of that day extends out through probably a 12-hour span. During the season, we only really get them for about 20 hours a week. So you're talking about a lot of that body maintenance and recovery kind of stuff. All those little important details are kind of on your own, and that's where we talk about the importance of making the sacrifice. Those aren't mandated, and that's where the players spend a lot of their time is taking care of their body on top of going to class and going to rehab and then coming back into practice and meetings. It's a full day. It's a full day, and then on top of it, those are long days, and game days are even longer days.
Well, that's right. And travel, you could be traveling, especially you guys can travel all the way across the country in the conference that you guys are in. And that's a unique aspect. There's a beauty to that, but obviously also could be a tiring aspect. You really have to plan from that standpoint. Neil Brown's really trying to build a specific culture there. What do you think what's the culture at West Virginia? What is kind of the mantra there? And how do you go about building the culture in your program?
Obviously, just take it down to the basics. Even before Coach Brown took the program over, West Virginia as a state is a very prideful, hardworking state. The first thing you think of is all the mountains here and the coal mining. So it's a tradition of toughness for sure, especially physically and mentally. But we're developmental. We try to develop the whole person here. So you're going to get your doctorate in football. You're going to be an expert in football and techniques and your scheme and your position. But I think Coach Brown's one of the best in the country at allowing guys to develop and grow in life out of football, whether it's doing charity work at the Children's Hospital, which we share a parking lot with on game day, or our fifth quarter program where guys learn how to build resumes, networking, all those self-enrichment things that you kind of get lost in football. We're still dealing with human beings as big and fast and strong as these guys are. When they play their 4 years, we want to have them in a good position to be successful through life. So, we try to do the whole person development thing here for sure.
That's great. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the overall development of the player, especially it's got to be a tough thing because obviously transfer portal is something that is a big deal now. Trying to keep all the players in sync with your culture, where you may have new guys coming in, you may have some guys going out. That can always be well, it's more difficult than it was 20 years ago because of that aspect of it.
For sure.
How do you guys specifically how do you build relationships with the players? And you can go to you personally, all right, because you're working with a defensive lineman. How do you build those relationships with the guys so those guys understand, where you're coming from, what you expect from them, and that everybody's on the same page, just so that no one has any surprises or anything. They know what's going on.
I try to lower myself. I try to put myself on a pedestal because I'm a coach. I try to, I know that was the thing to do, and probably a little bit unique this way, but I try to let these guys into my personal life a little bit. The great relationship with my wife. They come over to my house a lot. We do a lot of meals together. Spending time around food, I think is crucial. We're from the Northeast, so we all like to eat, go out to eat and stuff like that. But no, having those casual conversations and understanding where a kid comes from, what motivates them in a short period of time is definitely crucial. And it's also a little bit of a sacrifice too, because we know as coaches that us being good at development and taking care of kids doesn't show up on whether we're a good coach or not. So it's one of those things that it doesn't equal wins and losses, but we know deep down it's the right thing to do. And it's the reason why I got into coaching, is to be around people. The coaches in my life were some of the best people, and the only reason why I'm sitting here today, as a successful part of society. So I still love that part of it, no matter what.
Yeah, that was always my favorite. I played at UConn, and my head coach was Skip Holtz, and my linebacker coach was Vernon Hargraves, whose son's Vernon Hargraves the third.
Yes.
And I remember it's funny because I remember going to Vernon Hargraves' house when he was my linebacker coach at UConn, and we went there, and Vernon Hargraves III, who played it might still be in the NFL, but played many years in the NFL. He was a little baby, and I remember them pushing him back and forth in this little rocket thing. And it's amazing to me, like, to see him in the NFL, because I remember him when he was a little tiny baby, a little guy. So those things are so special. I remember, man, playing pool down in Skip Holtz's basement, and with all the other guys, and his wife bringing out food, and those are the things that you remember. Like, you remember the games, but you remember those things as well, and those stick with you. Those are relationships that stay with you forever, and it's worked that way for me. I'm sure it works the same way with your players.
And that's Dave,
Yeah.
that's some of the stuff, like, just to jump on that with, that's one of the things that we've really started to see, even from our side of the game, right, is the personal relationships that you develop, and that type of stuff, when when your players look at you as not just somebody who's telling them what to do, or not somebody who's just bossing them around, and it's not strictly that work relationship. When you can allow them to kind of see into your real life, and why do you tick, right, and then kind of make it more personal, I think your players now will just play harder for you. I just really think that's what I've seen, at least, and I'm sure it's the same for you, Jax.
Yeah, I totally agree. They have to feel the bond, no matter if they can go in the portal or whatever it is. We're still dealing with human beings at the end of the day.
There's no doubt about it. It's individuals. You're tailoring everything individually, not just obviously what the overall program needs to get done, but you're obviously tailoring individually so they can get the most out of them, maximizing, like, the players' development. Like, what are some of the, especially, you could talk the defensive line, but you could talk overall West Virginia program too. Like, what do you guys, or what do you do specifically to really maximize the player development? You talked about obviously getting to know them, but their performance on the field, and their performance off the field academically. What are some of the things that you put into place from that standpoint?
I try to build goals. Um, Everybody wants to win the football game, but people have their own personal accolades and goals. And I think you have to align the team goals and the player goals, and even my personal goals. It's really a triangle, I say to my guys. So I always tell my guys, like, look, I want to be the best defensive line coach in the country. I want to win the national championship, and I want to win the Big 12. You guys want to be all conference and be drafted as high as you possibly can, right? Well, to me, that's you guys sacking the quarterback and TFLs. Well, we all want the same thing, right? Like, so how do we put those things all together? Well, hey, look, there's scheme on one hand, there's doing your job on the other hand, and there's me putting you in position to win, and you taking care of your body, and then you doing the best thing for the team. All those things, we can match them all up so they're all cohesive. We're all going the same direction. And then if you match up goals and you're working towards goals, like, no one's ever astray. Like, my best pass rusher wants to sack the quarterback, wants to be all conference. Well, we need him to do that too. So it's my job to put him in position, his job to execute, and then we'll have a good defense, then we'll have a better team. So you just got to keep everything out in front. And I always believe in showing cards. Hey, man, like, this is the matchup for you this week, or this is how many snaps I think you're going to play. And, if you play well, we'll go from there, and you'll play more. But, or, hey guys, this is what I'm thinking this game. What are you guys thinking about matchups? Keeping them involved in the conversation, for sure.
Do you have like specific like key principles or teaching like real tactics that you have that you want them to understand? So like not just in the drills phase, but when they're watching film, right? A defensive line, it's not just scheme, but you're right. It's individual person you might be going against that week. What are some of the like kind of tools that you like to have them in their toolbox when they're starting to look at these things?
I always want them to feel like I want them to max out. I want them to be okay with maxing out effort-wise in the field because you never know the play. I also believe in playing a lot of guys. Number one is you're not going to be if you think the guy behind you is as good as you or better than you, you'll play harder, right? Because of competition. You also will feel comfortable being able to take a break because you don't think that I need to be the guy all the time, right? And I think there's only one way to learn defensive line is to actually go out there and play it. Like you really can't be in shorts and t-shirt and do a bunch of sweet drills and it necessarily show up. So that's number one. And number two is I like to teach guys, the old saying, teach guys how to fish, right? To be able to eat forever. So when I'm game planning or when I'm breaking down an opponent, I want them to see it from a whole perspective on how they could be effective as coaches. Well, coach, I like this. Why? Because of this, or this can help us. So when they're on the field and I'm on the sideline 30 yards away, that when they're coming back to the bench, it's real knowledge going back and forth. Because at the end of the day, I'm not playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
All right? I can make an assumption or have an educated guess what I saw on film, but I won't know what's really going on until the day after the game, right? So again, having those open lines of communication and giving guys autonomy. Like I really try to be a facilitator, just put guys in the right position and then provide the feedback to help them be in the right position again over and over and over again. Because at the end of the day, my job is to give you the opportunity, right? I can't go out there and do it for you.
Defensive line is so diverse in the sense that each position on the defensive line requires maybe a different body type, right? Different skill. People don't realize they when you come up through like, I don't know, youth and high school, guys are like, okay, the defensive linemen are this, right? They got a motor and they're physical and they want, but when you get to the college level and obviously the pro level, like each position, strong side end versus weak side end, a nose versus a 3 tech, even a 1 tech might be slightly different than the nose, right? So going across the defensive line, like what kind of like type of players do you like, and maybe even body types do you like for each position?
Yeah, so starting on the edges, arm length is
Yeah, it's something. Yeah,
it just is a thing. Like I was able to work with Montez Sweat when I was at Mississippi State, and I mean he had a lot of great intangibles, but like no one could ever touch him. His wingspan was insane, right? So I mean having length there and twitchiness across the board is another one. And then the ability to rush the passer from the edge, like having a pass rushing threat is crucial. Interior wise, like at the nose position, the A gap players, I mean, you got to be the toughest dude in the team. Like, particularly, I love wrestlers, guys with low center of gravities, guys that have trained, doing craziness, like doing dumbbell curls in a sauna. You know what I mean?
Listen, we all know that you play in that interior, you got to be a different type of dude, right? And you look at some of the greats that have done it. I mean, like, you think Vince Wilfork was the everyday, average, run of the mill type of dude. Like, look at that guy in the locker room, right? And then it translates to the field. Like, you got to be a certain type of dude when you're trying to do those things.
No doubt, and definitely like just flat out having a screw loose, is a great intangible. Now, one I can reel you back in where you're not going to, break up a bar on, High Street, but but definitely having a screw loose is crucial. Then 3 technique types, 4 eyes, body type wise, those are the versatile guys that might be a little bit longer and leaner, but they also could carry a decent weight and still move. So, your prototypical power forwards, those type of guys. Maybe not have the lowest center of gravity, but just freak athletes, guys that probably, for no reason can pick up a tennis racket and survive athletically. And other types. And then again, diversifying those positions at end where you have some bigger guys. But again, like twitch and arm length are crucial.
Yeah.
Jax, for you, I'm sure you've seen obviously that with the levels of where you've coached, right? So, and I'm sure just amount, right? Like total amount of guys per position. And then, there's a lot of intangibles that go into that. What defense do we run? What conference are we in? Right. So I'm sure those things kind of stack up. Can you list those kind of things? Like, where they kind of in an order in any way?
It definitely has to be, to me, you have to put guys into a fit. So it really depends. So like if you're working with people that are kind of more willing to adapt to what the room is, then
right.
you can go out and recruit the best athlete, right? If you want someone that's going to be more, hey, we're 4 eyes and a 0, then you have to go recruit the biggest guys, right?
And I'm sure you dealt with both of them. Like, hey, I got to go on the road, and I know I need to recruit this as my 3 tech, right? Or this is what I need at the edge. And then other places, it's kind of like, okay, let's go and look at it and see. All right, this is the guy. I can get this guy, and now he can do this, right? But I think one of the things that you said that I really touched home was like you like to play a lot of guys. And I think in the way of the world now, Dave and I have discussed it. The more guys you can get on the field, it's the same thing with like groupings for offense, right? Now those guys, even if they're not the guy, they're playing a little bit. Maybe that's more of a thing that will now keep them in your program rather than having to go, constantly fully recruit your roster every year, which is something it looks like is going to happen.
No doubt. And honestly, the biggest thing that forced my hand I wasn't even thinking of like keeping the team mentally together and all those kind of things and making people happy was the tempo guys. They force you to do it at D-line.
Right.
You got to stuff. Yes, but yeah. I mean, Texas Tech's going to go 3,000 miles an hour. You better have 10 guys that can play.
Right.
There's no doubt. What differences? So you've been at multiple levels, which is really cool, right? West Virginia, like what you're able to recruit and get there versus when you're at Fordham or Stony Brook or any of those schools. Like, what is the difference? Like, people are confused as to what the differences are. What are the differences that you see at your level versus maybe some of the lower levels?
People say I'm crazy, but it's not skill. It's the combination of size and speed is the thing. So let me give you an example. Chase Edmonds at Fordham.
Yep.
Was drafted, played running back. Unbelievably skilled. But he didn't really stand out any different than the FCS guys, right? Saquon Barkley, unbelievably skilled, but
yeah, you had him too. I always forget the dudes that you've coached, bro. Like you've coached some names and been around some names that it's like, whoa.
Saquon Barkley's thighs were the same size as the D-line and the O-line. and he was really fast. And we also the videos of him hang cleaning, right? Like he was just unbelievable there. But I mean, there have been a ton of good running backs. I mean, there's a ton of good running backs in the state of Pennsylvania that come from Bloomsburg, right? We've had pro guys come out of there. So we're Slippery Rock, have had pro guys come out of there. So it's unbelievable. I mean, there's I coached John Daka and Rondell Carter at James Madison, and those two bookends were unbelievable. I mean, it was sacks left and right at JMU, but Montez Sweat is 6'7", and his wingspan was almost 7'2", with just as athletic as those guys. So it's really the combination of size and speed. Watching the linemen run these days is like it's really not different than looking at the DBs. They're bigger, but they're just as agile. It's amazing.
It's mind blowing. The defensive linemen, especially the ends, you're right. Like they're the guys who played basketball in the old days.
Right.
Like they played power forward.
Down the
yep.
Miles Garrett in the All-Star Weekend playing basketball.
Right. Yeah, windmill, dunking, hooping all over the place.
Right.
It's incredible. It really is incredible what these guys can do. How does like academic situation look? So like a player comes in, they all come from it's not a education standpoint, but they're coming from all different places, right? And they may have taken this class here and they may have taken this class at this high school. What are some of the things that you have to do to make sure all your guys are successful from an academic standpoint?
Well, the best thing we do here, and this is the only school I've been to that actually does this, is we test the guys for like see where they are foundationally. So obviously, some guys come into school and they might have had a reading disorder they didn't know about, or a learning disability, or learn differently, right? So we also test for learning styles, so we're able to reach them on their level.
Huge.
Some guys, we thought were very sharp, or whatever, but they just needed glasses, right? They test their eyes, right? Or if we're afraid to raise their hand and say they couldn't see the board. So you find out where they're at, number one. And then I think the biggest thing is when they're picking majors and things, is to find things they're interested in,
Yes.
as well as they can handle. I think interest is more than handle, right? Like you can find a way to get tutoring. You can find a way to get the material, right? And you might make a C plus, but you'll still get your degree, right? But if you're interested in it and passionate about it, you'll do it, right?
Yeah.
I've had the guy that wanted to be the doctor that didn't like science. He's like, dude, are you really?
It's like, hey, bro, I don't know if this is gonna work out for you, bro.
Right.
Like,
Or the dude that wanted engineering but hates math, and honestly, it's funny, but I had some guys that say I want to do mechanical engineering, thinking they're going to be a mechanic, right? It's so some
Right.
guys just some people just don't know, and I was there too. I mean, I didn't know exactly what the hell I wanted to do when I was coming out of high school, but you got to find out what people's interests are. Like, I'm an awful golfer, but I hit one shot, I have a great day. You know what I mean? So it keeps me interested for sure,
but I also think that's something that, like you said, when now you're recruiting, you're recruiting the best players, you're recruiting athletes, you're recruiting all this stuff, dude, but you're also recruiting people that, like you said, you're going to bring into your house. They're going to meet your wife, right? And that's where those conversations can start to happen. Hey, man, what do you like? Like, when you daydream, what do you think about? Like, let's find a way to fit that into, this aspect of it. And then when you start to break down those walls with your players, now they feel comfortable enough with you to be, hey, coach, I really couldn't see the board for the last 3 years. Like, well, hey, man, let's get your eyes checked. Or, coach, I like when we talk about this. Like, now you can fit those guys into and kind of help them out. And they look at you not only as the guy that's, telling them, like, let's go, we got to push, they look at you as a person. And I think that helps them, academically as well.
Absolutely. And like, I spend more time with my players than my wife. So, we hope we get along, hopefully we're there for each other and more aspect than just snapping the ball over and over again, right?
No doubt about it. It's one of the interesting things about, like, from a recruiting standpoint, players that you're bringing in and they're coming from all different areas and different places, especially West Virginia, right? Because that's a smaller state, and you guys have to recruit from many different areas.
Yeah.
I heard some interesting things on recruiting that, like, I don't know if you guys even, I'm sure you do, but like player personnel has become more important in recruiting.
Staffing.
Yeah, I just saw something on that today, like how that's becoming more and more of a where you guys are coaching on the D line, like they might more bring people to you and say, okay, these are the guys we really like. Like, what do you think? Whereas in the old days, maybe even when you first started, you were probably going out and finding those guys. Explain a little bit how that works now.
Well, so, even when I first started coaching and recruiting services that started getting big, right? You got the recruiting service there out of Jersey was one of the big ones, and 247 was getting big, and
Right.
it was like the Mike Quick show was on, and he covered New York and New Jersey, Connecticut, and Eastern Pennsylvania, and you got a couple guys, but now it's information overload. Like I get lists of guys from California or California Junior College or Texas Junior College, as well, the areas I might already know guys, or Derek sends me guys, right? So the guys at the DPP role has really been able to synthesize it because it's too much for me to do. There's no way I can look through this list of people, call these recruits, scheme, take care of my guys, and take care of stuff in my personal life all at once. So those guys have been able to boil down what do I really need to know. Like I don't need to sort through a list of 100 defensive linemen in one little area because probably 3 of them can play for me. And probably maybe one of those guys I could actually attain, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
One of those guys that'll, I won't say fall to West Virginia, but there's schools out there that are sexier or have different NIL. So like, hey, these are the group of guys that we could yield. And I think that's the best thing that DPP does. And it might be a guy he really likes more than I do. Maybe some characteristics, maybe a little bit different, but at the end of the day, like that guy's a Power 5 or whatever. And whether you love him or he likes him or whatever, like at least I'm not wasting my time,
Right.
And the NIL piece, I know you guys are going to bring it up. Like that's a huge factor too, where
Right.
like those conversations are, yeah.
Transition.
I mean, those conversations are completely over my head. Like number one, I don't know
Right.
what the budget is. I don't know
Right.
what we essentially exactly offer, right? And I sure as hell don't need to be the one talking to a young man's agent because then again, I don't know. So
Do players have like is that something that's
That's
become more
great.
of a thing to have agents in general to
Yeah.
represent them for NIL? Is that some of the things that are going on in
yeah,
that
and
space?
I actually like it. Like number one is I think there's most agents have a legal background or some sort of understand the industry. So I think that's really good. They can go out and yield those things, and I think it's good protection, right? So you're not kids aren't signing away their lives to to whoever, right? There's some sort of there's someone out there gathering all the knowledge, and again, that I don't have the time or the means to do. I really tell guys that bring me, hey, coach, what about this? Like, you need to go talk to a professional because I have an agent that takes care of my stuff, or a lawyer I speak to about, or an accountant I work with because it's not my background, right? So again, I think it's good for those kids to do that, and I think having third parties in those conversations are really good. It's awkward walking into your boss's office and sometimes telling him you want a raise. It's a little easier to have
Right.
calls, and then also make sure all the ducks are in a row. This conversation need to be had between two people that a professional could take care of. I like it, honestly.
Yeah, well, obviously the transfer portal and NAL and coming in at basically the same exact time
Mhm.
has totally changed a lot of things. But I mean, obviously everyone's fastly adapting to the new world and figuring out along the way, figuring out what's best for their program. Is as you guys go forward and with respect to those things, how do you as a coach, I don't know, advise your own players when they have a question or I'm talking about players that are already with you, right?
Mhm.
Like
How do
you
you manage
know,
your room?
right, manage that room. If somebody either, I don't know, feels maybe they're looking for something per se or playing time, what are some of the things that you have to do personally to be able to manage that room?
Number one is I don't put a box on playing time, and I don't make promises. Like I really truly believe the best guys play. Um, the best guys get snaps, whether it's walk on, scholarship, big deal or not. Like I won't stay employed at the best if these guys don't produce, right? So, and I think number one is making what you're looking for production wise and all that stuff. Put it out there, right? Don't keep any secrets. So if so and so starts the game 20 snaps and 15 minuses and busted on 4 plays, like that person needs to know it and the rest of the guys need to know it. And then I think it keeps myself accountable where coach, you're playing a guy that messed up 10 times. And everybody knows it, right? So there's no secrets. And I also like to have open conversations, right? And I don't want your dad to call me and tell me he thinks you should play more. Like, let's me and you have a conversation because sometimes dad doesn't know that you can't get in do the plays right at practice or vice versa, or you miss 10 classes. So, that's also a big piece in having a thing where we can sit down and talk to each other. And then if guys are looking for NIL and those kind of things, like I don't think it's wrong. I don't want to find out a kid's going to enter the portal or do it after it happens, right? Like say, hey, come in and say, hey, coach, like, this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. What's the deal? And let's work on it, right? Let's have a real grown man conversation. Sometimes it's like, hey, man, like you want more money, but did you make any plays?
Right.
Right.
What have you done to earn that?
Correct. And then when you do get that deal or you do get the taken care of, like you gotta produce now.
You're
Right?
like, now you got to do it again and
And then
again
you-
and again
and
and
again.
again. You have to do
Right.
it more and more and more, and it's now that's the baseline. That's what's expected. So you've just taken that level of your play and raised it, but now you have to continue that level of play and continue to play at that level in order to continue to get what you want.
But I think NIL is great. I think the portal's a necessary tool. I mean, I didn't want to transfer when I was in college, but I think I played for the same coaches my whole career too, which is I bounced around myself as a coach. So I understand how to look at things. My biggest gripe with the thing is the tampering piece, using the NIL to force guys off other guys' rosters.
Right. Or let me just pay you so you don't go somewhere, right? Like you come to I'll give you an NIL deal to come to me, knowing that guy, you're never really going to play that guy. He's never going to have a role, just to keep him from being on the opposing sideline. Yeah,
correct. And it's added another level to recruiting, which I don't love. I don't like the tampering game, and also the feeling in December or late May having to scramble to go look for more players when that used to be a time of going to just recruit high school guys. It's just, it's tough. It's tough, but the tampering piece and the using the NIL as a bait is the really only part that I hate. Can they ever police it? I don't know, but that's really the only thing that's come out of it that I really dislike. A guy that wants to go play somewhere else, like, time is precious. You only get 4 or 5 years to do this, so go somewhere you're going to be happy by all means. But I think we have made it bad for each other as coaches, not necessarily the players. To be honest with you.
Well, that makes a ton of sense. I think eventually over time there'll be some things put in there to more, at least curb some level of tampering. Because the last thing anybody wants is you're coaching a guy and someone's called him up as he made 3 sacks the last game and says, "Hey, come over here," right? And I'll give you this. That's the thing that I think everybody agrees. Well, at least in the first step, that has to be somewhat some level of either, I don't know if the word is control or regulation, but whatever it is has to be put in place in order to figure out to eliminate that tampering aspect of it. I have two I think are good questions left, and we'll let you go because I could talk to you all day. But with how first of all, what's the best way for a prospect to reach out to you? Well, like, what is that I'm a defensive line prospect. I'm interested in West Virginia. I think I'm a player. How do I go through that process with Coach Jackson?
Number one is I think you go to the social media channels, which I know I'm notorious for getting backdated on followers and DMs, and then I enjoy, me personally, I enjoy talking to high school coaches and even handlers. They don't. It's a really good process for the most part. Like, have an adult reach out that knows me as well. I think number one, it helps kind of deviate some of the guys that quite frankly can't play for me, and it's just impossible to get back to everybody. But like, I know if Derek texts me a huddle link, like, the guy is a Division I player, and I might not love their game, but I know the kid can play, right? So, and it's coming from a credible source, like someone I trust, someone I've worked with before. So using a high school coach is crucial, I think. And then, I think for guys, like, if you like places you think you're playing, like, go visit those places as a sophomore and a junior when you're going your decisions. Go check places
started out so much earlier. Like, you have that time now. Go and that's one of the things that I think is so important. Is like, you got to go and you got to see it, and you got to, I think, talking to the players on the team, right? Like, stuff like that, right? That's crucial.
Yes. And then some guys, some of the high profile guys get texts from their agents. So, so it's
right. You're dealing with third party. Hey, are you the agent? What are you? Like you said, you're a handler, but like, which handler are you? These guys don't just have one now. I mean, you're talking about high school guys that they're making more money than any of us are. Like.
But I'm old school. I'm old school in that sense. Like, have your high school coach reach out, like, and because I'm definitely gonna have some questions. And
of course,
most times tape speaks for itself as far as a player. But if you're a headache, you're late for school a lot, like. Those are things I'm gonna have to deal with as a position coach.
Right.
Coach Brown's
and
not
those
gonna
are
be happy.
Handler probably aren't mentioning, right? But a high school coach is still gonna let you know, like, hey, this guy is kind of whatever. So this is what you're getting. Now, look, you may say, okay, whatever, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it when he gets to us, right? But at least that knowledge. It's the same thing. When I send you a huddle link, hey, bro, tell me what you think about this guy. I don't know if he's for you, but what do you think? And it's quick. Here it is, right back. Like you said, you get back, and that's the type of stuff. That's the relationship, how it works, especially, with high school coaches.
number one. And honestly, like I'll put this out there because I think it's becoming not a huge problem, but it's a problem. Like I know if Derek texts me, the measurements are going to be really close. So for instance, like if he tells me the kid is 6'4", and I watch the tape, that in my mind I'm seeing someone that's 2 inches taller than myself, right? And that's the opinion I have on the kid. If he tells me the kid is 6'2", like, all right, I'm thinking he might be shorter, but I'm looking at it from that lens. But the worst is when you see on a kid's tape or Twitter 6'5" and all these, and they're way off.
You're like, he can't even foot.
Right. Number one, it makes you look bad because you lie. Literally you lie, right? And it changes the perspective. Like I've been around a bunch of 6'2" defensive linemen that are awesome that I know I could take another 6'2" kid. You know, maybe in this cycle I'm not looking for that, and I just went to that school or I brought the kid on campus and I wasted everybody's time. Like that'll set you back too. Like I just wish guys would use the exact measurements because at the end of the day,
we're wasting everybody's time.
Right. Don't waste anybody's time.
Right.
There's nothing worse than a 5'11".
Now the next time you might actually have a 6'3", 6'4" guy, but you know what? Now I'm already kind of, I don't know, like you've already burnt it right away. Or you might just say, I don't even have the time, dude. You already burnt me. See ya. I'll never take a player from you again.
Yeah.
Right. Somehow they got into this arms race of lying on their height.
Right. Like it goes up an inch every time they post it on something different. 24/7.
Can't keep growing exponentially.
More, right? And it's like their TikTok says 6. Everyone is it's like, what are we doing?
It's like, oh yeah, coach. How tall are you, coach? 6'3"? No. I'm 6'1.5".
Right.
He's shorter than me.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. When I first started running all the camps, and I didn't know this was a thing. So when I first started doing the camps, back in 2005, I would take pictures with the award winners. Okay. And, well, this is what's interesting. Originally, I was taking pictures because people would get familiar with me and they would know that I was running the camps. But the coaches in college wanted me taking pictures with them because they all knew I was 6'1". Like when
they would stack them up next to you.
6'1" with no shoes on. So if a guy was taller than me, they knew he was a certain height. If he was shorter than me, they knew he was a certain height. So it was all of a sudden became a thing. It's like, hey, are you going to keep taking pictures with the guys? Because we know how tall they are or aren't, right? And it was an amazing thing. I never even dawned on me that it was like, I know this guy is this height. If he's taller or shorter than him, I know what the height of the kid is, at least approximately, right? So I can tell if they're telling the truth or not.
There's nothing worse than being in a staff meeting and saying, hey, this kid, 6'4", whatever's coming, and you bring him to the head coach and he's
6'1".
Yeah, because even Coach Brown, Coach Brown's barely 6 foot, right?
Right. And again, like Coach Brown's got to meet with 40 other people. So it's like I just wasted the head coach's time.
Right. Which is not something you want to do.
Right.
He's got how many daughters at home, right? So, he's trying to live that life too. You know what I'm saying? He don't have time to be wasted. And it's just like, hey, this is a guy. And look, we see it all the time because these guys come to our camps and we look at them and we're like, wait, what? And it's this. It's like, come on, man. Like, just we're wasting everybody's time here, which is why I would think for you guys to get a guy on campus to come out to, camp or wherever, just so I can physically see you in person and get my eyes on you.
No doubt. And for them too, the biggest thing is, we talk to players all day and we text back and forth, call, FaceTime and whatever. But like your folks have to be comfortable with me. Like you have to like campus. You're going to live here for 4 or 5 years. Like you have to.
Listen, man, you're coming from Florida. This is West Virginia, dude.
Yes. Yes, it might snow. There's some hills. It's important. Or you might, I've had players that have, most people are surprised by our facility, because we redone everything and whatever. But I have people come and say, Coach, everything is great, but I just realized how far this was. Like, I'd rather know that before signing day,
Right.
You're like, hey, you had to take, a plane to get here, dude. And then, hey, you just drove 6 hours, like, you know what I'm saying? Or like, hey, you had to hop in a car. Like, this isn't going to be like, hey, I'm going home on every weekend, right? Like, you're going to be here for a while. And look, and in your different stops, I'm sure you've seen different types of kids or, just your programs, where they recruited from, whether it be West Virginia, where you're in kind of a national, right? Like you're recruiting kind of all over the place, like to a place like, Old Dominion, where it was like, hey, we just became a Division I program and we're trying to figure out what it is. So I'm sure those intangibles all go into it.
No doubt. I mean, I thought when I got further south that it was just going to be warm weather coming. I had kids say, "Coach, it's too damn hot down there." So you never know, right? It's an inexact science recruiting.
Right.
Oh, there's no doubt. No, I remember when I was at UConn, we would get a lot of guys from Florida, and as soon as everything was fine in the fall, as soon as it got to the winter, I remember guys like literally didn't even tell coaches they were at the airport going home. They were like, I can't do this, and we'd be sending players to go chase them down at the airport, come grab them back, because that's you have to know. Guys have to understand what's actually going to go on from a weather standpoint too. I love how your career you continually to grow. You've been at West Virginia for the past 3 years. You've seen different levels. You've seen different coaches that you've worked with. Guys who are aspiring to one day be you, to be a coach at the college level, at the highest level like you are. What are some pieces of advice that you would give them?
Number one is don't be afraid to be broke.
Oh, baby.
Derek knows. I mean, we had a great time working camps in summer, but it wasn't always because I wanted to coach football. I need money.
Right.
Listen, dudes like us in a dorm room, right? We were coaching camps at colleges that didn't even have football teams. We were just using them as facilities, right? Like
right.
I think we did one at St. John's.
We did one at St. John's. I mean,
and then we just listen, like that's just what we did.
That's number one, and have your goals, have your dreams, but be realistic. Like you might have to start off at a Division III school painting lines. I was CW Post and I was flipping laundry in the weekends. I mean, it is what it is. If you really want to do it, you have to really have a humble beginning. Sometimes not everybody's going to get the P5 GA job. Number two is learn the computer stuff. Visio, PowerPoint, Microsoft, the whole Microsoft Office deal. Learn that stuff, and go places. Pull up on practice, whether it's high school, college, junior college. You can learn something. Our defensive coordinator came from Mississippi junior colleges. Our co-DC came out of NAIA. I have a Division II background. Our O-line coach, Matt Moore, came from high school. Our quarterback coach came from high school. No one's path is the exact same, but I'll tell you guys, I'll tell them this to everybody that wants to listen, like those guys all worked, developed, and grew and did the bare minimum and crappy things that you don't want to do or you don't see on TV to grow in the profession.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be humble and learn. And whether it's volunteering on the weekends or whatever it may be, maybe you're running the scout team, like, you got to have thick skin and all those kind of things. And it's humble beginnings. You're not going to go from and a typical guy. You're not going to go from holding a clipboard to being the head coach.
Right.
All those guys are working.
You went from Division II, then you were at like Stony Brook, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, you were actually like a position coach at Stony Brook, and then took a step back to go be a GA at Penn State, right? And then,
correct.
And then listen, and that's like. I know we're getting to the end here and we want to let you go because I know you got stuff to do, but you transitioned like those jobs that now you got where you had become a Power 5 coach kind of came from you being a GA, those connections and networks, as you moved up to Old Dominion, to James Madison. Like, I'm sure there was a guy that said, hey, I coached with him here, or I've coached with a guy who coached with him, that kind of set you to that next level.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's a lot of moments that I was, like, dang, I got to get this guy coffee. Like, I got to go pick up his dry cleaning. I got to go grab lunch,
like you said, humble beginnings. Yeah, I got to fold these towels. I got to clip the loops. Like, yeah, and then I got to draw the cards, and then I got to go coach a position, and then I got to go recruit.
Mm-hmm. So it's it's definitely, definitely a work. There's no straight path. Everybody's path different. You could bring in 100 guys and ask the same question, you'll get a different answer, but they'll all probably tell you have to work really hard and spend a lot of late nights and a lot of early mornings,
Coach, thank you so much. It's been fantastic having you on, taking the time to out of your day. I know how busy it is to talk to us. They can go and reach out to you at Coach Jax, JAXDL, right? That's your Twitter, I guess.
Correct. Yep, that's my Twitter. Definitely follow me on there, and send a DM if you have any questions. I'm not opposed to sending coaches drill tapes and any of that stuff. I learned stole my drills from other people too. So coaching game or anything like that,
It's what we do. It's what we do. Also, one of the guys, Coach Jack, he still does clinics, right? Like he goes out, does the Glazier clinics. He gets his face out there. You know what I say? So just a phenomenal resource for our listeners.
I do the Glaziers. I big promoter of Lawrence First and Goal. So
yeah,
I'm out there. So
yeah, I love that you do that, bro. And I think that just
Lawrence
comes
is
back to
good.
our how we were brought up, right? Like somebody helped you or somebody sat with you and worked through it, and then you're still willing to do that. Like I think you're still a people first guy, right? Because that's what ultimately gets things done is people.
Absolutely, 100%.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you,
Coach.
brother.
Have a great day, and we'll see you real soon. Good luck this season.
All right, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Bro. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, buddy.
All right, appreciate it.
Later,
Bye-bye.
man.
That was great.
Really good dude. Really good dude. Like I said, known him for a while.
You survived technical difficulties.
Unbelievable, bro. It's all good. We're good. Listen, I know he's just such like just his whole path, right? And he's so humble that he'll never touch on it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he played at a school that's no longer like, it's not even a school anymore. They transitioned from Division II, changed their whole, merged with LIU, and now it's just one program. That's kind of where he got his jump. And then, like I said, he was at Stony Brook for a little while. Then he went and GA'd with at Penn State with Saquon, and obviously then the jobs that followed from that. He was at Mississippi State. You're talking about a D-line coach in the SEC, and then then he started James Madison. So he's been at FCS schools, top level, right? He was at Old Dominion when they transitioned to a Division I and got that job because the guy who was coaching defense at Penn State when he was GA and knew he was a good guy and said, hey, come coach my D line, right? Like, so he's put in the work to and now he's at West Virginia. And look, this is a big year. Like, he's very open about thinking like, hey, dude, if we don't do something, I'm not going to be here very long, because he's a very open about that. So he knows he's got to coach his tail off. But I think some of the things he said were very, really interesting, talking about his room and how he likes to, really get into it with his guys. And I think as a position coach, you can kind of do that stuff because you're with them in the meeting rooms more one-on-one, and, talking about bringing guys to his house for food and, hanging with his wife and all those kind of things. I think are a little different than what most people think Power 5 coaches are about.
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%. That was an excellent conversation. We'll close it out, and phenomenal to having a college coach on. Anytime we could do that, there's nothing better than that. Being able to hear what he has to say, what they're dealing with, and that whole perspective from that standpoint. So we'll let you go until next time. We'll hit the podcast. I feel like me and you are frozen for some reason. I don't know if you are.
I'm good.
You're good?
Hit the outro. We're good.
I'm trying to hit the out. I'm trying.
Well, listen. Hey, look. Nobody said that. Like, we may put the good information out there, but we don't have this other, like, the podcasting aspect ain't really us.
we'll hit the outro here. It was a great podcast. We lost Coach Dave. We lost, but it was a great podcast. Great having Coach on. He really shed a lot of light into a lot of great things from a football standpoint. We'll see you real soon.